Hi everyone, my name is Carlo Del Cruz. So I'm one of the co-chairs, and similar to Jordan, when Paul first asked me about this giving circle, I thought, yeah, how much do I have to give? I'm a student. After a few glasses of wine, I'm sensing a strategy. He convinced me that it's not about how much you give, but really just your dedication and encouraging other people to give what they can and the resources that they have to make a greater impact. And just by coming together, not only are we making a greater impact, but added to that, where our funds are matched by another nonprofit, which means our impact is even greater to the organizations that we're supporting. So I have the brief pleasure of introducing the Honorable President of the Board of Supervisors, David Chiu. So I just want to say a few notes about him, but I feel like he's an individual that doesn't need an introduction. We're in his neighborhood, we're in District 3, San Francisco Chinatown in the historic I Hotel. But David Chiu is I was going to say pathbreaker, but he is both an innovator, but he's also come from histories and families much like our own. He's the first son of immigrant parents, born and raised in Boston. We won't hold that against him. But he moved to San Francisco many, many years ago to build his life and his home here. And since then, he's served on numerous organizations, including the Asian American Bar Association, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and I can go on, and they'll probably all be organizations that are very familiar to you. But he's also very exceptional in that he's been elected to the Board of Supervisors for an unprecedented 3 times, and in his very first day of office was nominated or voted as president of the board, the first Asian American to hold that seat. And now, of course, we have an Asian American mayor, a Board of Supervisors that's very diverse and very representative of the diversity of San Francisco. And he is a strong advocate and continues to be a strong leader for our communities. So I just want to welcome David Chiu and thank you for being here today.
Good afternoon and happy holidays. It is incredible and amazing to be part of this group, and I want to thank all of you for supporting, for breathing, and for drinking Lacuna tonight. It's really special for me to be here for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I do a lot of public speaking, but very rarely do I get to speak before someone who has been an incredible inspiration for all of us, someone who has taught us what it means to help support and to make sure that the women warriors of our world step up. So Maxine Hawkinson, thank you so much for being here. I also want to just take a moment and recognize the hallowed space that we are in. For those of you who don't know, the International Hotel, this building was built a couple of years ago. In fact, I served on the board that worked to rebuild this space, which in 1977 became the birthplace of the Asian American activism movement, when there were hundreds of Filipino immigrants, some of whom are depicted behind me, who were forcibly dragged out of their house by our local sheriff's department in the midst of a very, very intense fight for civil rights and fight for tenant rights. And some of you probably know that we stand in what was the former Manila town. There was an enormous Filipino community, about 10,000 folks who lived within a few blocks of here. And their expulsion from this area was what really started, I think, the activism of so many folks and generations of activists that then led to where we are today. And I will tell you, for myself, it was mentioned that I was from Boston. And when I grew up in Boston, there weren't a lot of folks who looked like me, who looked like us. And in fact, I got my start as an activist when I was a freshman in college, because there was, at a nearby university, there was a hate crime against 8 Asian American college students who were going to a semi-formal dance. They were attacked in the middle of the night. And they knew who their attackers were. They were actually fellow students on their campus. But their administration refused to investigate. And at that time, this was in the late 1980s, that was what caused me to get involved. And I thought, I want to be an activist, but Boston didn't really feel like that place to do it. So I moved to Washington, D.C. for a few years and thought, well, this is where our country does politics. And some of you may remember in the mid-1990s, our National Democratic Party decided to investigate Asian American political activists from around the country for campaign finance fraud. Many of these activists were innocent of what they were being charged with. And again, I didn't feel comfortable being there. And so I say this because we're all here in San Francisco. I think that this is a city that is truly the Asian American capital of our country. Not only do we have an enormous Asian population, but we have leadership here that gets it, and we have recurring and new generations of activists like all of you that know how to come together to move things forward. Now, I'm only going to mention one other personal anecdote, which is in 1999, I actually started a group a lot like Lacuna. It was this group called Happy Hour, which stood for H-A-P-I Hour. And like Lacuna, we used alcohol to try to get folks to be generous. What we decided to do, we were a number of progressive activists from a lot of different fields. And in 1999, we realized that we all enjoyed going to bars, we all enjoyed drinking, and we wanted to support organizations that we cared about within the Asian American community that were not otherwise being funded by our mainstream philanthropists. And so what we decided to do was once a month, third Thursday of every month, we would pick an Asian American bar, and we'd send out an email list. It was initially an email list of 7. It became an email list of about 3,000. And we would show up at a bar, and this is what links the drinking with the philanthropy. Half of what we made at the bar proceeds, we would contribute to an Asian American organization that we would choose every month. And dozens of organizations later, and tens of thousands of dollars every year later, we realized we had something. There was some power to this. And I tell this because, let me tell you some of my fellow co-founders. Jane Kim, who is now representing District 6 in the South of Market area. Phil Ting, who is now representing the Assembly on the west side of town. Monty Agarwal, who went on to be the chair of the Asian Law Caucus. We were all young 20-somethings that liked to drink, liked to have a good time, but also wanted to have an impact on the community. So when I look out onto all of you who are starting Lacuna, I'm really inspired because you are the next generation and you are not coming soon enough because we have enormous gaps in our needs. I can tell you, when we go through the budget process every year, I still have to educate my colleagues to explain to them it's not enough to provide money to domestic violence. We have to think about how Asian American women and kids, victims of domestic violence, are being impacted. It's not enough for us to give money to HIV and AIDS. We know that within the Asian community, we don't spend enough, we're not investing enough in thinking about how to address HIV and AIDS in our community. It's not enough just to spend money on childcare or on seniors because Asian seniors and Asian kids have particular needs and particular issues. It's not enough to spend money on housing writ large because if you go just a couple blocks from here, you will find families where 3, 4, 5 people are crammed in a room that is 7 by 10 feet, literally just a few blocks from here, living in buildings that if there are fire, hundreds of them would be at significant risk of injury and death. And so we know this, but the broader philanthropic community doesn't know this, and this is where you fit into that space, you fit into that supporting, you fit into that drinking. So I just want to, again, thank you for being part of this new effort. I look forward to supporting Lacuna as much as you want me to support you. I look forward to helping to work with you alongside to make sure we're filling in those gaps, filling in those spaces, so that someday, maybe someday, we'll be able to say, you know what, there are no spaces, there are no gaps, we don't have Lacuna, we don't need to drink, we finished our work. So thank you so much, and congratulations, happy holidays.